and welcome to my channel at Erin Art. I really appreciate you checking out this tutorial for a watercolor cicada. I want to let you know that I did draw this ahead of time, and so if you're going to follow this tutorial, you will want to look up a image of a cicada and draw your cicada out, because this tutorial is simply just painting what I've already drawn. So we're gonna recreate this painting on a traced version of that same drawing, and I'm gonna walk you through the steps. So let's get started. We're going to try and recreate this painting. I'm actually planning on going brighter with the orange on the legs and the wings, because in real life they are actually a pretty bright orange. So it'll be slightly different. I also adjusted the composition on this one. You'll see it's more centered. When this is all dry, like this one is now, you can easily add a background and avoid messing up or blending with what you've already painted while it's wet. If you want to hurry to get this part dry to get to your background, you can always use a blow dryer to do that. All right, let's get started on setting up our palette. I am using tube watercolor paint. These are found at Hobby Lobby. They're the Master's Touch, and they're pretty inexpensive. If you're wanting to get started with watercolors, this is a great way to begin your exploration of this medium. There's also a lot of other inexpensive materials you can find at Hobby Lobby. Of course, there's also Amazon and other online sources for paint and watercolor. So I've already put these paints in my palette, and they're dry right now. And when you use watercolor out of a tube or in a pan, the main thing you want to do to use the paint is to activate it with water. So what I'm going to do is mix these colors with about 3, maybe 4 drops of water to achieve a muddy consistency. You don't want to get it too thinned out with water, because you will lose your potency of the pigment. To move on to the next step, and that will be to take down my painting. By the way, this paper is a 5x7 paper, and it is made by Canson Watercolor. And I buy this in a 9x12 book of 30 pages. It's pretty affordable. The painting. I have most of my brushes are round brushes. They're just different sizes. I have a 10, 6, and a 3. These are both 3s, but one of them has more of a point to it. And then I also have a flat number 4. So to start out, we're going to take a number 6 round, and we're going to wet the body area of the cicada. We're going to avoid the eyes, but we're going to do the head surrounding those eyes. And I am going to paint even where the wing is. Just getting it wet right now before adding some pigment. We are going to avoid this leg too. So make sure you go around it when you add your water to the page. You want it to be wet enough that you can kind of see that it is still wet when you look at your page from an angle. And that will allow your paint to spread around. Okay, so we're going to dip into the Paynes gray. And we're just going to tap in all around where we painted water on our page. I have a little too much water here on the head, so I'm going to actually mop some up with my dryer brush. And I'm going to do the same thing across this wing. It's a little too much. Okay, now I want to get some black and tap in on the lower part of the body, along the edges of the lines. And I'm going to tap a little bit into the surrounding areas too to darken that up. That'll give us a little more of a shadow, and I'm going to go back to this Paynes gray and add more around the wing where we can see the head and body out of the wing space. It's okay if it bleeds into there a little, that's okay. Just make sure you're avoiding those eyes. You can also take your brush and kind of mop off a little on the very top of the insect to create more of a highlight in that space. Right, so the next thing we're going to work on is our rock. We're going to let this part of the body dry a little bit. And for this, I'm going to take my large brush and I'm going to do the same thing we did with the body. We're going to wet the rock and go around the legs. Let's add some black. And I'm going to go from the areas where there's lines. Just let it bleed. And then I'm going to add in some Paynes gray between the areas that I put black. you can play around and add a little more color wherever you want. You can also add water, and that just will help push your paint a little bit, but don't add too much. Take your brush to kind of clean up the edges. Okay, I like how that looks. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the legs. No, we're gonna work on the wings. So this area is still probably a little bit wet, and that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and wet our wings. Careful to stay in your lines. And I am using the number 10 round brush still. And this one you may want to make sure it's not too wet. Don't want too much of a puddle on there. I'm going to mop some up because we want some bleeding, but we don't want it to be very heavy. All right, so we're gonna take a little bit of this cerulean blue over here on the left side of your wings. Just tap that in. Also tapping in just a teeny bit of this Paynes gray on my brush. And you can actually go where the lines are. So I'm gonna take a dry, clean brush. I'm gonna take the number 3 and I'm going to try and mop up any pigment or water right here on this little strip of the wing. And it's okay if you can't get much up. I'm just gonna try. And then right here on the top of the wing too. By getting my brush damp, I can reactivate that paint and absorb it into my brush a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the orange, and I'm going to be careful-ish try to tap it in here. And right up here. Now it's starting to bleed a little, so I'm going to take a brush and kind of mop around where that's happening. Okay, so go back to the number 3, get it a little damp, just a tiny bit of paint on the tip of your brush, and we're going to go through the lines. And then we're going to switch back to the big brush again and mop up what's bleeding out from that. I definitely had more bleeding here than I wanted, and that's okay. Sometimes watercolors just take hold, and you just have to adjust your sails. And what I'm gonna do is actually take a little bit of this black and mix it with the Paynes gray and go back over some of this body. So I'm going to take a little more of the Paynes gray and bring it down here and go around the body, around the wing, and get it a little darker. And I'm going to leave this top part the color underneath for the highlight. Next thing we're going to work on is the legs. Take your number 3 round and wet your legs. So once you've got them wet, we will grab some orange and tap in. mix a little bit of the red with a little bit of this black and Payne's gray and go on the bottom edges for shadow. And then I'm going to go back with some more orange. Also like to get some more orange on these wings. And I'm going to do a touch of this yellow ochre too. And I'll do a little bit of yellow ochre on the legs. Just the tops where it would be a highlight. Back over the lines, a little more orange now that it's drier in this area. And then I'm going to also do a little more cerulean, just a touch on the tip because it's a very strong color. And go over these. Blend them into the little segments on the wing. Alright, so I'm going to do this little area too that I've ignored, and I think I'm about done with the wings. Okay, so we're going to work on the eyes now. We're going to take this brilliant red on the tip of our brush, number 3 round, and we're going to fill in this space with the red. If it does start to bleed, just grab it with your brush as quick as you can. I didn't think that area was so wet still. I guess it was. Alright, so now we're going to let this dry before we add any more to our painting. Take take a little break and come back. Okay, so we're back from a break and my painting is completely dry now. I even left long enough that my watercolors dried up. So I'm going to make sure I still have all of my colors available, and we'll re-wet some of them too. The first thing I would like to address is adding a little more shading to the legs. So I'm going to take some of this brilliant red and mix in with the orange. I'll make us a little bit of a darker orange. And I'm using the number 3 round. Just getting a little bit of that color on the tip of my brush, and then I'm going to go along these bottom edges of the legs. Okay, and then I also want to go to the brilliant red with this same brush, and we're going to go ahead and go over the eyes and make them a darker red, but please leave one little spot at the top, that lighter color underneath, and that'll give you a highlight on the eye. I'm also going to take a little bit of this orange and do another go at these wings, kind of along the bottom edge. And then I'm going to go back over these veins. That. And I also noticed that I just have a little bit more of a black color to this cicada that I did on this painting, and I like that, so I think I'm going to work some of the body color a little bit more, but I want to be careful around the eye and the wing space that I just painted so I don't cause more bleeding. So I'm going to get some more of this black on my brush, and I'm sticking with the number 3 round and coming over here where I've mixed earlier some of the Paynes gray with it. And we'll go in to this bottom area. Being a lot more careful this time around when I get close to the areas that I know are still wet. I'm taking some of the pure black onto my brush, and I'm going to just go right underneath and create some definition where these segments are. Also defining some of these lines where the segments were. Now I want to make sure these little feet stand out more. Add a little details to the rock that it's on. Just doing the very tip of this brush to create these rough lines. Now I'm going to paint the antenna on our cicada. And I think that eye is dry enough now. I can add my eye dot. And it's not very round, it's kind of almost like a slant. So what you can do is you can continue to use your brush and black paint if you want to go around your lines, or you can take a pen like this, black pen, and go over all of your lines on the painting. And that can give you some more definition, kind of like this one looks, or you can leave it as is. But I am going to use my brush for this part. You don't want a very wet brush or very wet paint to do these detailed lines with the black. Otherwise it might spill out where you don't want it. All right, I think I'm done with this. I'm gonna let it dry and then I can come back and do the background. So it'll just take just a few minutes for this to dry. Okay, I am ready to get started on our background. Sorry, the lighting has changed. I guess we've got some clouds that have rolled in today. I'm gonna take my number 10 round brush, get it very wet, and bring some water over to the page and paint around our rock and cicada. To get between the legs, you can use a smaller brush so you have a little more control. My goal is to just get a small layer, thin layer of water across the background. Very careful not to go over the antenna, kind of leaving a slight little tiny gap around it. If you happen to paint over an area you don't mean to, or get wet water on an area you need to stay dry, then just take your paper towel and blot it gently and then let it kind of dry before you go back over that area with anything new. All right, so now that my background is completely wet, I'm going to get my green. I'm going to reactivate that pigment with some water. And I'm going to start dropping in. This area seems to have dried on me, so I've got to get it wet again. Just be careful when you get around those legs. Not to go over your orange. Now you can add a little bit of blue in too if you'd like. If you do happen to get wet your antenna, like I just did, you can wait until it's completely dried and then you can go back over it. If you want a darker line with your black, you can go back over it with black. Feel free to go back in with some more in different areas to go get a little darker saturation. Maybe add some depth to the background. And if you want a little darker colors too, you can add in some of this Paynes gray mixture with the black. I'm just kind of making it a sparse addition so it's not taking over. Too much. All right, I think I'm about done here. I need to just do some touching up where I see some white edges left. Okay, and the next thing to do is to let that dry, and then we can peel our tape when it's done drying. Reveal our finished painting. I always try to peel at a little bit of an angle to hopefully prevent the page from tearing, like it is right here. Maybe I was too soon to peel. There we have it, our finished painting. Pretty happy with that. Now if you prefer these, remember you can use a pen to go back over the lines and get a defined line around everything if you like, but I think I'm going to leave this one as is. I enjoy how it looks. Thank you so much for joining this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Please drop a comment to let me know what you think. and hope you'll subscribe and follow me on my socials at Erin Kent Art. You can also visit my website at erinkentart.com. Thanks so much.